Beginning the current Dav Masech the Shabbos Daf Kufta Zayin, beginning on the bottom of Kufta Zvoma Beis, beginning 2 lines up at the bottom of the Yamid, where Gemara continues the discussion of the previous stuff, which was discussing the halachas relating to the 85 letters left, because that was the opening of this parak regarding Kol Kisvei HaKodesh, the Matzilim Ne'adleika, you save in the fire, and we said that the minimum is 85 letters. That's where our Gemara continues. Our shir is co-sponsored by Kazakh and Cheskel, Torah Anytime, Daf HaChaim. Something we're going to speak about in today's daf, like we said, is the Parsha Vayhi B'Zayaron, which is 85 letters long. Additionally, may one save the parchment of a Sefer Torah from a fire on Shabbos, even if it doesn't have any of the letters. Additionally, how to dispose the Shemus Hashem, which Sefer Minim written by Jews who serve by the Zara, or written by philosophers who debated loyal Jews, does it have the sanctity of the Sefer Torah? Additionally, why we may not read Ksuvim on Shabbos, which is discussed in the Mishnah, we're going to see another opinion in our current daf. Also, saving the containers with the svarim, how this halacha will have the ramifications in skinning a korban pesach on Erev Pesach Shechalis B'Shabbos. That's going to start a discussion, which can continue the next daf, that in that machlekes they bring our Mishnah as a proof to how much can you skin the korban pesach on Erev Pesach that's on Shabbos. This is some of the important terms and concepts we can discuss is minim, which are heretics regarding the Sefer Torah that they write. Also regarding Shtori Hedyotis, which are documents that are not really Shabbostic, and one is not supposed to read them on Shabbos. So we begin the current daf. The daf begins on the bottom, like we said, of Kuf Tezvum Beis, second line from the bottom of the Yamid. Tana Banalina Brisa, like we had said in the previous daf, we said the minimum of consider a Sefer Torah having sanctity that you could save it from a fire on Shabbos if it has 85 letters. Now, where does that idea come from? So that the Gemara says Tana Banalina Brisa because by Yibin Say Ha'arim B'Yemem Moshe, that parsha in Sefer Ben Midbar. So we have a machlekes actually where why it has the following phenomena. Parsha Zu Asla Kadosh Baruch Hu Simanis. This parsha Kadosh Baruch Hu made for him signs to separate from the parshas Nirid Momala Ulamata, which means say in the beginning of it and the end of it, as you see over here in the graph, it has inverted nun from before the parsha and after the parsha. Why does it have that? So it's actually machlekes. Let's just says Getinda on top of design manal. Shein Zimakaima. This is not its place. It doesn't really belong over here. It's not talking about the traveling of the different compartments of the Jewish people previously. This parsha doesn't belong over here in Parsha Bala. It belongs in the beginning of the Sefer of Parsha Bamidbar regarding the Degalim when it talks about the travels of the Jewish people. Why are you having over here these nuns? Why are you having this parsha of Vayim Tzarim, which is when they're traveling? That's when the arm would travel. Why is it over here in the middle of? It's unrelated to where it is. It really belongs in the beginning of Sefer Bamidbar. So that's why it has these nuns to tell you that it doesn't really belong over here. That's one pshat. That's one interpretation. Rabbi Yemi gives a different pshat. He says, it says that's not the reason that why it has these signs, because actually he says no, it actually does belong over here, because this parsha is in the beginning of when they traveled away from Har Sinai. Like it says before that, it says it was in the second month, in the second year, in the 20th of the month, that the Amen got up and they were there by Har Sinai all this time, and now they're leaving. So it actually was a leaving, it was a masa, it's not by where it's talking about that they went from here, went to there, went to there, went to there, but this is by the time they travel, and there is appropriate of the parsha over here of Vayihi Ben Sayar. Ella, rather, the signs of Misha Sefer Chashavu B'fnei Atzmai, simply because it's its own separate parsha, that's why it's over here. And therefore, that's the two different interpretations why you have these nuns. Either to tell you that it doesn't belong over here, or no, it does belong over here, but to tell you that it's its own sefer. Meaning it's like a separate Sefer Torah. As the Gemara actually explains, who is the pasuk in Mishlei going like that says, that they carved out the pillars 7, Elu Shibri Sefer Torah, that refers to the 7 Sefer Torah. To tell you that this parsha of Vayim Tzarim is its own sefer, so it comes out that beforehand, in the beginning of Sefer Bamidbar is one sefer, then after the Sefer parsha of Vayim Tzarim is another sefer, and therefore this parsha of Ibn Say is its own parsha. So the Gemara, come on, who's that like? It's Kareb. It's going like Rebbe, who he holds that it's telling you that it's its own sefer, and therefore the sefer has not just 5, but actually has 7 svarim. That's like Rebbe. Now says the Gemara, Man Tan the Polgala the Rebbe, who's that disagrees with Rebbe, meaning the Tanakam of the Brisa that holds actually doesn't belong over here. It's Reb Shimon Gamliel. It's Reb Shimon Gamliel. The Tanya, like we learned in the Brisa. He says, I see the Parsha Zu, it's going to be in the future that this Parsha is going to be, where all punishment is going to be nullified, and no one's going to be worried about punishment anymore, and it's not going to be any more Yitzhahara, Sheti Akamakan is going to get uprooted from here. But the Kasabim Kaima. It's interesting. The Sefer Torah is not going to look the same according to this in Manda Amar. Vayibin Aaron is not going to be any more in this parsha. It's going to go into the place where it really belongs, which is in the beginning of Sefer Bamidbar. So it says the Brayso Balama Kasavakan. So then why is it written over here? This is again the Man Amma who disagrees with Rebbe, holds it doesn't really belong over here. So why they put over here? It's to separate between the two different punishments, the first one and the second one, meaning it's referring to when the Jewish people sinned. What are they? So what's the second one? It says it's that the Jewish people were complaining, we're traveling so long, it's 3 days already, we're exhausted. That was right after the Pasha of Ibn Sayah. And then you have Piranish Rishona, what's the first punishment? It's Vayisu Mahar Hashem. It's that they traveled from the mountain of Hashem. What does that mean? They traveled from the mountain of Hashem. So it's just is that they deviated. They went away from the path of Hashem, which was within 3 days of their travels. Because although it says it afterwards, it really started already beforehand, where they already started desiring. These were the rabble rousers that desired. They were killing the plains now of meat, and they really just found it as an excuse to try to rebel against HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the way Rashi explains. Taisus brings from a medrash that actually when it says Vayaso, that they traveled away from Har Sinai, a path of 3 days, it's the famous quote of Ketinik HaBereach Mebeis HaSefer. It's like a child who's fleeing from the yeshiva. He's just get me out of here. He can't run fast enough because they already learned too much Torah already, and just they wanted to get out. So that's the sin. That's the Peranis Rishainam. And again, therefore, it really doesn't belong over here. It just was put in to separate between the two sins that the Jewish people did, of the Misainim and of that of the Asafsuf, of the rabble rousers. Says the Gemara, Vehechem will come in. So where does it really belong? The Parsha of Ibn Sayah. Ravashi belongs Bid Golim, by the Parsha of the flags of the encampments of the Jewish people, which is in the beginning of Sefer Bamidbar. So again, that was the machlekes that we have regarding the Parsha of Ibn Sayah Aaron, which we're bringing it in because we discussed in previous stuff that it's the 85 letters that's the minimum of the Sefer Torah. Like we see this Mandama holds actually like its own Sefer. That's why it holds that the 7 Sefer Torah. That is there's two nuns that there are before and after. It's either coming to tell you that it doesn't belong over here, or it's coming to tell you that it's considered its own Sefer on its own right. Now going back to the topic of our Mishnah regarding saving Kisei HaKodesh, the Gemara has the following question. Ibaylu. Hagoyayin shall Sefer Torah. The part of the parchment that's clear, meaning to say that there's nothing written on it. We usually call that margins, but as we'll see, actually that's part of the discussion. The Gemara assumes right now that any part of the Sefer Torah that has nothing written on it, where, for example, the top part or the bottom part, anything that was erased or became smooth, that the words are not there, that's the question. Matzil Lisim Minhad Lake, where you save just the scroll itself from the fire? Or Matzil Lisim Minhad Lake, where you not save that from the fire? So the Gemara says, Tashma, let's bring a raya. So the Gemara has a few different rayas that it qualifies and says, no, that's not a raya. The Gemara says, let's bring a raya from the following brayso. It says, Sefer Torah Shabbalah, a Sefer Torah that got erased. That they actually got worn out. Got worn out. You have it from many years, it was there, it was buried somewhere. You have a Sefer Torah got worn out. So it says, if you could gather 85 letters, as you recall from the previous stuff, that you can have in the Sefer Torah, there's at least 85 letters. Could go in Parsha of Ibn Sayar, which that Parsha has 85 letters. Oh, then Matzin is considered as a significant Sefer Torah, and you're going to save it. If not, Imatzin, you're not going to save it. And that says the Gemara, Vamai, forget about the 85 letters, and you keep on saying that that's the measurement of a Sefer Torah. Typically, Mishum Gillian the day. What do you mean? There's the margin itself. You tell me the margin of the scroll has as a Kedusha Sefer Torah. That itself should be a reason why you saved it. Why are you saying it has to have 85 letters? So the Gemara, no, Bala Shani. But it's worn out is different because since it got worn out, that means to say the margin also got worn out. And that's, when it's worn out, it's not considered significant. Our question was, when the margins are intact, it's just that, let's say, the lettering is not there anymore. That's our question. Yeah, maybe if there wasn't 85 letters, maybe you would save it because of the margin. But here, the whole Sefer Torah is Bala. It's got worn out. So therefore, the scroll itself is not really so important anymore. Maybe there, it's not going to have the sanctity to save it from the fire. So the Gemara says, okay, Toshim, let's bring a different raya. Sefer Torah Nimchak. If a Torah scroll got erased, now that's the difference between these two cases. First case was they got worn out. Now when it gets worn out, obviously the lettering gets worn out, but also the scroll gets worn out. Now we're not talking about that it's not old and worn out, it just got erased. Let's say it was exposed to certain heat or whatever. So the Sefer Torah got erased. So here also says the Brisa, and Yesh L'Lakach Shmeinim Chamesh Eises. You have enough to gather 85 letters. If you go through the Sefer Torah, you'll see there's an Aleph here, there's a Gimel there. You'll have 85 letters. Kagoyin, but partially even Saharon, you'll have the amount of the partially even Saharon, which has 85 letters. Then Matzil, like we said, that's the minimum of a Sefer Torah. Then you're going to save it. If not, Imatzil, you're not going to save it. And that's the Gemara Vamai. Why, if there's no 85 letters, you're not going to save it? Typically, Mishum Gilyon the day, it should be sufficient for the parchment, because you have the whole Sefer Torah that only the letters got erased, not old and worn out. So this scroll of parchment itself should be a reason why you're going to save it. Why you're not saving it? Obviously, it's not considered Kedusha Sefer Torah. Says Gemara, no. It's very interesting how the Gemara answers. Mokum Haksav, the place of the writing, meaning where the letters used to be, and now it got erased. That I don't have any question. That's for sure less than general parchment, because the Chi Kaddish, when initially that area of the Sefer Torah got sanctified, it wasn't being sanctified for a margin. It was rather being for Agav Ksavu de Kaddish. What was the parchment's functionality when you originally wrote the words on it? Was as a place for the letterings to be on it. But we obviously were not giving it a platform for the parchment itself. It was to put the letters there. So Azal Ksav, so when the letters are leaving because they got erased, Azal Kedusha say. So then there's not going to be any sanctity in the place of where the letters used to be, because it doesn't have any right in its own sense. So yeah, when we're talking about over here, it's Sefer Torah Shenimchak, when it got erased, the place of the parchment is not going to give it the sanctity, because it was only there as a platform to be as a base for the letters. So when the letters get erased, there's no sanctity for that scroll. Kikimi Boili, my whole question was, Shalmalo v'Shalmato, meaning the margin that were initially made to be the open, unwritten area. Now when the scroll got erased, that's also going to be smooth, that's also going to be clear, should be parsha la parsha, which was between the parshias, should be daf la daf between each page, should be chilas sefer, which in the beginning of the scroll, at the end of the scroll. And therefore, that's what the Gemara says now. So wait a second. So fine, I understand that you tell me the reason why you have a Sefer Torah that got erased is you need the 85 letters, because the scroll itself is not going to be significant because it's only for the letters itself. But okay, even though you don't have to gather 85 letters, you should still say in the Brisa you save it, but mishum hahu, because of those margins that you have on the top and the bottom. Obviously, you should be able to infer from there that you don't save because of the margin. That's the Gemara. No, the case of the Brisa that said that if a Sefer Torah got erased, you're not going to save it if you don't have the 85 letters, is the guy is it was cut out, B'shadi, and thrown away. Meaning there's no margins. The only thing you have is the place where the letters used to be. And now if you don't have the letters, that part of the scroll is not significant. Because again, that was never meant to be unwritten. That had the letters. The letters got erased. That part of the parchment is not significant without the letters. But maybe the margin would have a sanctity. Maybe we would save it, and therefore we have still not resolved the question. So the Gemara says, Toshma, let's bring another raya from Mishnah Masechtas Yadayim. The Mishnah says, Hagilyoinin, the margins, Shalmala, that's on the top of the Sefer Torah, Shalmata, on the bottom part of the Sefer Torah, should be in Parsha LaParsha, you have between Parshas, you have a gap of scroll, should be in Daf L'Daf, between every single column, should be Tchilas HaSefer, that's in the beginning of the scroll, should be Sefer HaSefer, that's at the end of the scroll, because as the Gemara brings in Baba Basra and Daf Yud Gimel Mabez, that in the beginning of a Torah scroll, you're supposed to have enough that it could go around the pillar that you put it on, and the end of the scroll has to be enough that you could go around the whole, to circle around the whole Sefer Torah. So you have areas of margin in the Sefer Torah. It says the Mishnah Masechtas Yadayim, Mitamin Yadayim. If you touch the margins, and then you touch Truma, you're invalidating the Truma, which is one of the Yud Ches Dava, the 18 Gezeres they made, which we quoted in the beginning of this Masechta, in the Avidal and Aleph, that if you touch the Sefer Torah, they had a concern because they used to leave the food near the Sefer Torah, and the mice would come, ruin the Sefer Torah, so they said if you touch the Sefer Torah, you can be Mitamin Yadayim. So one thing you see is that the halacha of the Sefer Torah is on the margin too. So you see that you would save a Sefer Torah because of the margins. So the Gemara, no, Dilma Agav Sefer Torah Shani. Maybe because it's secondary to the Sefer Torah, that's different. Because he would talk about that the writing of the Sefer was not erased. The whole Sefer Torah is intact. He's just touching the margins. Our question is, when the Sefer gets erased, there is no sanctity because of the lettering. You only have the margin that was always functioned as a margin. That we're asking, would that be significant to make a Sefer Torah? Yeah, the fact you're touching the margin, that's of course it's part of the Sefer Torah. That's not a right to our question. We're asking when there is no Sefer Torah. The letters got erased. Now you're touching the margin. That was our question, is that going to have the sanctity of the Sefer Torah or not? So the Gemara continues and says, okay, Toshma, let's bring another raya. The Brisa says, Hagil Yainin, the blank parts of the Sefer Torah, the Sifrei Minim, and the books, the Svarim written by those who are Jews who went off and worship idolatry, and they would write their own Tanakh, and they write it in the Hebrew letters in Lashon Kodesh, just like we write it. So, but it doesn't have the sanctity of a Sefer Torah. You're not going to save this from the fire. And it's going to get burnt in its place. Saying them and their names, even Hashem's names. But one thing we see is that it talks about two things: Gilyanim and Sifrei Minim. So Sifrei Minim we understand because that's written by a heretic. But what's with Gilyanim? It says, "My love Gilyanim the Sefer Torah." Aren't we talking about the margins of a Sefer Torah? We see that we don't save it. We see we let it get burnt. It doesn't have the sanctity of a Sefer Torah. It says, "No, Gilyanim the Sifrei Minim." It's talking about the margins of a heretic. So I don't understand. You tell me that the Sefer Torah itself that he writes against the Sefer Torah, you're not going to say, do you have to tell me his margins of his Svar? Someone says, you're right, but this is what the Bryce is saying. The Sifrei Minim harehin gil Gilyanim. It could be that it's supposed to be one case, not really margins and the Sifrei Minim. It's telling you that the Sifrei Torah written by heretics are like blank pieces of paper that as if nothing was ever written on it, which is what the margins are. That's what we're telling you, and therefore, again, there's no raya to this question. The Gemara leaves it unresolved regarding what's the halachic status of the margin. Does it have a sanctity that you would save it like a Sefer Torah, or would you not? Now, once we introduce this teaching, again, classic Talmudic style, we have what's called gufa. That's generally when you say gufa, it means okay, we're going back to a text we quoted previously, and we're going to discuss that now. So the Brisa said, Helguyan v'sifrei minim, the margins and the books of the heretics. You don't save an avai, again, like we just qualified, it's really just talking about the Sifrei Minim, just comparing it to Gilyanim. So essentially you have a whole Sefer Torah, and there's a fire, you don't save it, you let it get burnt because it was written by a heretic. Rabbi Yisrael, he says, no, actually, B'chal, during a weekday, you're actually going to cut out from the parchment, the place where Hashem's name are written. You have Yud Kei Vav Kei, you're going to cut it out, but you're going to go ahead and bury it. But Vashartzav, and the rest is going to get burned. But Hashem's name, although it's written by heretic, you're going to cut it out if it's during the weekday, and you're going to bury it. On that, Rav Tarfon, he says, Akapech es b'ni. Rav Tarfon many times said this in Shas. He says that I'm going to cut off my son. Shem Yevayu liyadi, if this would ever come to my hand, Shani Esther Faisim, I would burn them. Vezaskar Sheben, with all the names of God written inside of it. He says, he says, even if a person's running after him to kill him, which he's referring to himself, you just don't want to say a curse on yourself. If someone's running after him, meaning after himself, to kill him, or let's say the snake running after to bite him, he would run into the house of idolatry, to a church, but he wouldn't run into the place of where these heretics are. Why? Why are these heretics worse than those who do Avodah Zarah? He says, these Mishamadim, these Jewish heretics, they recognize God, and they are denying Him. But halalu, regarding the non-Jews who worship Avodah Zarah, ain't like Kirim v'Kreifim. They don't recognize God and then deny Him, because that's just how they grew up. That's how their fathers taught them. They don't even know. It's like called Minig Avasim B'Yadayim. They don't even know their religion. They're just, okay, this is what we do. We come to the statue, and we do this, and we do that. So He says, I'd rather go there than go to where these minim are. Regarding them, the pasuk says in Yeshaya, and behind the door and the doorpost, you placed your memory, which means to say you do remember. You didn't forget. Rather, you threw me after the door, says Hashem, which you know, and you're bedafka, and therefore he held that these heretics were worse than the Avodah Zarah. Now, actually, Rabbi Shmuel, he actually goes and supports this idea of Reb Tarfon, and he says, Kavol Chaimer. It says the Kavol Chaimer. What's the Kavol Chaimer? He says, if to make peace between a husband and wife. Amr the Torah says regarding the Saita, my name that's written in sanctity by the Mei Saita, the suspected adulterous woman, which is to make the peace between husband and wife, God would have His holy name erased on the waters. So these heretics, that they place jealousy and hatred and dispute between the Jewish people and the Father in heaven, Allah's come for sure that their names of God should be erased and they should be burned. And therefore, for sure you're going to burn their Svar. And regarding them, David says in Tillim, he says, Hashem, behold, those who hate you, Hashem, I hate. Those who stand up against you, I quarrel with them. The ultimate hatred, I hate them. They became enemies to me, and that's how he went towards these minim, towards these heretics. Now, the Tanakama continues and says, just like you don't save these sifrim of the minim, the Sefer Torah from the fire, and so too you don't save it even during the weekday. not from a collapsed building, not from the water, not from anything that's going to destroy it. Which essentially, like Tais says, what the Gemara is coming to say is, don't think it's specifically from the fire that you don't save it, because if we let you, you might come to extinguish it. No, even when there's no concern, you're not letting move it and take it out. We're not saving this Sefer Torah, even though there's no concern of Mechaba, even if it's just a collapsed building or water, whatever it is. It's not something that you could go ahead and do, which Rashi says is actually even during the weekday. Additionally, the Ri says that we're talking about regarding the Sifrei Minim is that it's found in the hand of a min. Because if a min wrote it, if the heretic wrote it, then Taisus brings, the Gemara says in Gittin, that if it's found in the hand of a min, you bury it, but if he wrote it, you're going to burn it, and it would be deichik to say that would be only like Reb Tarfa, not like Rabban Rabbi Yisi. So if the heretic wrote it, everyone agrees that you would burn it. Here we're talking about that we find it by the heretic. And that's where Machlik is over here. Do we cut out the names of Hashem and bury that, or do we burn it? But that's not even if we know that he wrote it, just we find it by him. That's where the Machlik is here, according to places in our Gemara. Now, relating to this discussion, the Gemara brings, so we were talking about the svarim of a heretic, now the Gemara says, what's with something similar? It says, how many Sifrei de Be'avidin? These Sifrei Torah from Be'avidin, what Be'avidin were, that these heretics would write special Sifrei Torah to dispute the Jewish people. And they would have debates. And the place of the debate was called Be'avidin. So it's not really a Sefer Torah that they used for their heresy. It was a place where they would, a egalitarian place where it's a room for discussion, would interfaith, and they would have these debates with the Jewish people. So Matzilas in that Leica, would such a Sefer be considered like a neutral Sefer Torah? Would you save in the fire? Or Matzilas, would you not save it? So in Valav, sometimes he told him yes, sometimes he told him no. And it was a little bit like, loose in his hand. He didn't really know how to qualify that Sefer Torah, if it was considered as a valid Sefer Torah to save it or not. Now the Gemara tells that Rav Le'ozla Be'avidin, he wouldn't even go to Be'avidin, to that place of the disputations. But Koshkin Be'ei Nitzrafi, and B'shur not to Be'ei Nitzrafi, which was the name of a house of idol worship. Now Shmuel Be'ei Nitzrafi Le'ozla, Shmuel wouldn't go to Be'ei Nitzrafi, but Be'avidin he would go to the house of Be'avidin. He would go to that egalitarian, place of disputation. Now, Amalei the Rava, they said to Rava, "My tamalo is asis leBe'avidin. Why don't you come to Be'avidin?" Amalei said to them, "Dikla plan yikaborchi." He says there's a certain tree on the road, and it's hard for me because the roots became like a big mound, and it's hard for me to walk over there. And Rashi explains he was just trying to push them away, where he really didn't want to go, but he was coming up with some lame excuse. So they said to him, "Okay, Nakir, we'll uproot that tree." He says, "No, duchte kushale." He says that it's going to be hard for me to place then because there's going to be a pit over there. Or like he says, "No, I tried, and it's the smell over there is hard for me." But again, from this we see how Rav and Ravam, they were afraid to go to the place of Be'avidin because maybe in the dispute they're gonna win, or there's gonna be somebody and they're gonna get upset, they're gonna kill him, as we find many times as the Nachmanides or the Ramban, which I think the Rav mentioned in the Shavuos by night. The same idea where the Jews, they would have disputes and the Jews would win, they get upset and they say, "Okay, now you're gonna get killed because you went and you said bad about the other religions." So he was trying to avoid going to Be'avidin. Now the Gemara actually brings that Mar Bar Yosef, he says, "I know me, Minayo." No, he says, "I'm one of them." He says, I know these guys. I'm not afraid of them. He says, I know the Abba Sprach with these guys. Says the Gemara, Zimna Chadaz, the one time they went, and they wanted to put him in danger again, because you see that no one likes being told and shown how their ways that they think or that they're convinced for is wrong. So therefore, the other ones really avoided to go. Now the Gemara brings a story related to Minin, to people that are heretics. So Ima Shalom, that was her name, the base of Rebbe Eliezer. She was the wife of Rebbe Eliezer, who was Achsed Rebbe Gamliel. She was the sister of Rebbe Gamliel. Now Havahu philosopher. There was a certain philosopher, which Rashi translates philosopher as a min, as a heretic, and that's why it's related to the previous Gemara. Taisus brings that his teacher heard from a Jew who came from Greece, that said that in Greek, a philosopher, which actually in the Latin, philosopher is philin, as suffer is actually a lover of wisdom, which Taisus brings that hudayd hachachma, a very similar interpretation. But Taisus brings that some of the girsa is philosopher, not safa, but philosopher, which actually is a terminology of mockery and disgrace, which it's like a joke. But either way, there was a certain philosopher that was b'shivavuse, that was in our neighborhood. The Hava, as you continue, Tamid Beis, Shakal Shma, he had a certain name that was out there. He doesn't take bribery. Meaning he put that out over there, that you could try, but you're not going to be able to get, I'm a tough guy, a tough judge, I don't take any bribes. But the truth is, Incident Tish, under the table, he was taking bribes. But he said, yeah, he's above that, he doesn't do this type of things. So it says the Gemara, they wanted to make a mockery out of him. What did they do? So she brought him a golden lamp. And then after she gave it to him, she said, oh, honorable sir, here's this golden lamp. And then she came in front of him for a court case. Amrullah, she said to him, I want you to, I have a brother over here, I want you to divide with me my brother for my father's estate. We should go 50-50. So Amrullah, he said to them, meaning Ramlil and his sister, Ima Shalom, Pelugu, divided, brother and sister. So on that, Ramlil said to this judge, he says, Ksibam, but it says by us in our Torah, B'makam Bra, in the place of a son, B'ratu Leiteris. In the laws of Yerusha, if there's a son, the daughter doesn't get anything. So Amalei, the judge, said to him, he said, the philosopher says, no, from the day that you were exiled from your land, it's not Tolas Araisa de Moshe, it was already removed the law of Moshe. Now there's another book that took its place. In that book it says, a son and a daughter, they equally divide. He comes back the next day, he says he just wants to schmooze with the judge, he gives him a chamaluva. A luva donkey was a very expensive donkey, very strong donkey. He says, here, sir, I just want to give you this donkey here just because of all the things you do. You're so noble. So Amalahum, so the next day, right, he gives him this donkey. Amalahum, now he says to them, this judge who just got a bribe from Leal, says, let's say for this sefer. He says, you know what, go at the end of this new book. I said in this new book, it says that, egalitarian, boy and girl, female, male, they're the same thing. He says, no, but look at the end. It says, it says in this new book, I'm not coming to diminish anything from this Torah of Moshe. I'm not coming to diminish, I'm not coming to add on the Torah of Moshe. What does it say in the book of Moshe, meaning the Torah? But Makam brought in the place of the son, brought to Leiteris. The daughter doesn't inherit. So therefore, no, you're right. Ramlil, he's going to get the whole thing, again, because he got a bribe from Ramlil. So Amalei, so now Ima Shalom tells the judge, this is where they're going to make mockery out of him. Let your light illuminate like a lamp. She was alluding to him, remember that golden lamp that I gave you as bribery. So Ramlil said, Astachama, the donkey reader came with Batush Lashraga and kicked over the lamb and put it to the ground. In other words, I won with my bribe. And again, all of it was just that everyone around us should hear what a low life he is, what a disgrace. Although he proud like his grace of philosopher and he's honorary. And there's like this famous story where there was a woman who was in India and some guru who was always preached, these types of lessons and so moral, and she was so enamored by him. And she was Jewish, she was secular. And one day they were walking and he found a wallet full of money stuffed with cash, and he just put it in his pocket. She says, what is this? He says, it's finders keepers. And it turned her off so much, and that because she remembered that one time she heard about by the Jewish law of Hashavas Aveda, that we actually live the principles. We don't just preach and say, and this is what it is, and same thing over here. There's a grace of philosopher, but when it comes to a little bit shaykhid guilt, he takes it, and then he probs like as if nothing is above his wallet. So that's with the Gemara continue just relating to the heretics, how they're really two-faced. We continue with the halacha of the Mishnah. We said in the Mishnah, we said, why don't you? We said when we were qualifying that you could save all kisvei kodesh. We said whether those that you read on Shabbos, whether those that you don't read on Shabbos. What's those that you read on Nevi'im? We read from the Navi by the Haftarah. And what do you not read are the Ksuvim, are the writings, Tehillim, all those that are considered part of the Ksuvim. So on that teaching that we said that you don't read Ksuvim on Shabbos, we actually have Machlekes Amiram regarding this, that you don't read the Sfam. So the reason is, like we said, because the Mishnah said they bittul b'sem medrash, because people are going to miss the shir. Now, regarding that teaching, there's a Machlekes Amiram, and there's actually two versions of the Machlekes. Amarav, he says, Lo Yishon, we didn't learn that you don't read the Ksuvim on Shabbos because people are going to get drawn after. It's Geshmaka things to read when it comes to Sefer Tila, Mishlei, all these different Ksuvim. So we said you can't because you have to go to the Rav's drasha. So Rav says, so Leisha, we didn't learn that you can't read Ksuvim El Bizman Beis HaMedrash. Only during the time of the Beis HaMedrash, meaning before they would eat, the Rav would give the drasha. It's at that time that you can't be reading Ksuvim. But if it's not during the time of the Beis HaMedrash, meaning if it's after the Suda already, and the Rav's not darshaning, and the reason why it doesn't darshan after the Suda, because then people would drink wine, so therefore they could, and then you could go ahead, according to Rav, you could read from the Ksuvim, from the writings, which is Tanakh, Torah and the Ksuvim. You could read from the Ksuvim. Now Shmuel Amei says no. Even if it's not during the time of the Beis Hamedrash, even if it's, let's say, later in the day, ain't Karen, then you cannot go ahead and read from Ksuvim. No, on Shabbos you not read Ksuvim. We don't want you reading because you're going to get drawn after it, and you still might not come to the Rav Drasha. Says Gemara, is that really so? But when Narda, the town in Bavel, was Asher the Shmuel Habe, Shmuel was the Marda Asher, he was the Rav in Narda. Uben Narda, Piski, Sidra B'Ksuvim. In Narda, they actually were used to reading in the Beis Hamedrash by a parsha of Ksuvim, by Mincha de Shabbata. On Shabbos by Mincha, so although we don't read from the Haftarah, there's no Haftarah, there's no Navi, they would read from Ksuvim by Mincha. So how could you say he holds you not allowed to read from Ksuvim, even not during the time of Beis Hamedrash, even the whole day? What do you mean? You see clearly that in Narda, which is the place of Shmuel, they would read from Ksuvim in the afternoon. So rather, because this question, the Gemara says, if we have to say the machlekes, it's going to be like this. That Amar Rav says, we didn't learn that you're not allowed to read from Ksuvim ela b'makam Beis Hamedrash. Only in the place of the Beis Hamedrash, where the Chacham Darshans, in the Beis Hamedrash, that's where you're not allowed to read from Ksuvim, because the Rav is giving a drasha here, and you're in the corner over there, some reading some Sefer Mishli, that's not allowed. But if it's not in the place of the Beis Hamedrash, meaning just in general, it's in your house, then you could go ahead and read from the Ksuvim. On that, Shmuel Amei says no. Bein b'makam Beis Hamedrash, whether you're in the place of the Beis Hamedrash, bein shaloi b'makam Beis Hamedrash, whether you're not in the place of the Beis Hamedrash, that it depends. Bisman Beis Hamedrash, if it's at the time of the Beis Hamedrash, so then they incur, and then you cannot. If the Rav usually gives a drasha at 12 o'clock, and you're at home, you can't be reading it because it's going to stop you from going to the drasha. But shaloi bisman Beis Hamedrash, if it's not during the time of the Beis Hamedrash, like for example, like after the meal, then incur, and then you can read. So again, the first version was talking about the Zman Beis Hamedrash, and the second version is saying no, b'malkim Beis Hamedrash, because of course you could read shaloi bisman Beis Hamedrash, because Shmuel's place in Narda, actually they read from Ksuvim by Mincha itself. And that's what we're saying. So Shmuel's going according to his reasoning. That they actually would lane from the Ksubim by Mincha Shabbos because it's Shaloi Bisman Beis Hamedrash, and that you can do even b'makam Beis Hamedrash. It's just whether it's the time of the Beis Hamedrash that you can't do whether you're in the makam or not in the makam. And Rav says no, it's only in the makam of the Beis Hamedrash. That was one interpretation. Rav Shama, he says actually a way to answer this question. Actually, you don't have to say that. You could actually say you could say like we had said originally. That, yes, Shmuel is saying that you can never read from Ksuvim, even Shalei Bisman Beis Hamedrash. How could you say that? We said, but Narda, which he used the Rav, they would read from Ksuvim by Mincha. Says Zigmar, because Shmuel, when he said this teaching, that even after the meal, what's called Shalei Bisman Beis Hamedrash, when the Rav is not giving the drasha, you still cannot read from Ksuvim the whole Shabbos, that was going to Reb Nechemya. You're right, he himself holds like the Chacham, and therefore in his town, by Mincha, they would read from Ksuvim. When he was saying that you cannot read Ksum the whole Shabbos, was going like a Nehemiah, who he doesn't say the reason of our Mishnah. In our Mishnah, we said, why can't you read Ksum? Because we said, Bittul Beis Hamedrash, you're not going to come to the Rav's drasha, which you need to, because he's going to tell you what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. Rather, it's to make a Kal V'Chomer for what's called Shtori Hedgetis, as we'll shortly explain, for mundane documents. So Shmuel himself, he actually went like the Chacham, who they say it's like in the halacha of our Mishnah that it's because of not coming to the drasha. So therefore, after the meal, when there's no drasha, you're allowed to read. Which, as Tais explains, that means Shmuel really didn't disagree with Rav. He agrees that in the interpretation of our Mishnah that's because Bittul Beis Hamedrash that you're allowed to read Shalei Bisman Beis Hamedrash. He's just coming to say, according to Nehemiah, that disagrees with the halacha of the Mishnah, and according to him, you're not allowed to read the whole Shabbos. What's that halacha? At the time, like Lina Braisa, that there's actually two different interpretations why you're not allowed to read Ksubim. The Tanakama says, although they said the holy writings you're not allowed to read from it, but you could learn from it. For example, the midrashim of Shir Shirim and Kehelas. So although like the Chumash Megillah is all part of the Kesuvim, but you're allowed to go ahead and learn from it. And midrashim you could expound from it. Nitzuk LaPasik, let's say you need to look up a pasuk. Maybe right, but you could bring the scrolls of Kesuvim and you could look up in it. You just cannot read from it. And on that of Nehemiah, he says, and why do they say you can't read from that? So that's different than we find in the halacha of the Mishnah. That's Kadesh Yem, that people should say, the Kisra Kodesh in Kohen, you're not allowed to read from the holy writings of the Ksuvim. So the Kolshkin B'Shtari Hedjaitis, for sure for mundane documents, which the Machlik is Rashi and Taisus. Rashi says that it's actually referring to the documents of calculations or letters that were sent if someone found an object, which are weekday types of documents. Now, Taisus says he says, because you see the whole world, that they actually do read letters that were sent from place to place, and for sure you're allowed to move it, because you could use it to close your flask. And the place can actually discuss this, even halacha l'maisa. So the Ri brings that, you're right, Shtarei Gaitis are only like documents of deeds, of debts. But regular letters, you're allowed to go ahead and read because sometimes there's Pekuch Nefashis, and even if you don't know that there's Pekuch Nefashis, the Rabbein Tam permits it because it's not Shtarei Gaitis, because you know what's written over there. And you know that there's not let's say a business type of a document. But Taisus just discussed at the end, which we'll see later on the Testament Aleph. But let's say there's like history written on these documents. That Rabbi Yehuda says that would be forbidden to look at, because not less than what we say that you can't even look at an inscription underneath a picture on Shabbos, because even during the weekday the Ri says, I don't know who permitted people to read these stuff, because like Moshe Bleitzim, so for sure on Shabbos one is not allowed to read that. But again, that's Malchik's Rashi and Taisus, what's considered Shtari Hegetis. But be that as it may, that's who Shmuel was saying in that opinion from Nehemiah, that the reason why you're not allowed to read Kisrei Kodesh is because to make a Kavach Chaim, you sure cannot read like the paper or whatever it is that are Shtari Hegetis. That is going to be all day, because that's not due to Zman Beis Medrash. When did Shmuel's town of Narda read Ksubim by Mincha? That's going like the Halacha V'Chacham, that the reason why you don't read Kisei Kodesh is because of Bittul Beis Medrash. That would only be Negei Bizman Beis Medrash. When it's Shabbos afternoon, the Rav's not giving his drasha, then you could read the Sefer Maksub. Same with the next Mishnah, continue on this theme of our parak regarding saving a Sefer Torah from a fire. So the Mishnah says, Matzilun Tik HaSefer, you could save the mantle, the container of the Sefer Torah, im ha-sefer with the Torah scroll. So although really the mantle is not a Kisvei Kodesh, but once you save the Sefer Torah, you could save the container with it. So to be tikar tefillin matzilin, when you're going to save the tefillin, which that's the dispensation we led, but included in that is also the bottle for the tefillin. Now, and that says the Mishnah, let's say you have money in your tefillin bottle. You're the guy who goes around collecting with the pishka. By davening, you have all the money inside the tefillin and there's a fire. You're allowed to save it even though it has money inside of it. And says the Mishnah, where do you go ahead and save it to? So we have a machlekes. Tanakama says, you save it to a mavoi that's not open on all three sides, that's only open on one side. And the Beserim says, after Mafulish, she says, even if it's a mavoi that's open on both sides, even such a mavoi, you're allowed to go ahead and save it to. Which we'll see this machlekes in the next daf. Now, the Gemara brings in the following machlekes Tanoim, and the reason why it's bringing in is because it's going to relate back directly as a proof from our Mishnah. Tarmolina Braisim. Arba Aser, it's talking about the 14th of Nisan, Shechalis b'Shabbos, that falls in on Shabbos. So Pesach is on Sunday. So you're eating the Korban Pesach on Matzah Shabbos. Now, the slaughtering the Korban Pesach is done on Erev Pesach. Now, that's Shabbos. So you're allowed to go ahead and bring the Korban Pesach because it's a chiv to bring it that day, even though it's Shabbos. Now, but what do you do regarding skinning the animal? Says the Tanakama, Mafshit Nesa Pesach, so you skin the Korban Pesach, when you start from the hind legs, and you skin it adachaz until the breast. Now, why do you do until the chest area? It's because then you could take out the imum, the sacrificial parts, which are all inside the intestines. Because the sacrificing of the fats and the sacrificial parts override Shabbos. But you can't skin it anymore until the evening, because what would be the purpose of skinning it? That's only so for you to be able to eat the meat. That's just for the head, for the person himself. That you'll do by the Seder night. You'll do it later night. But tonight, now Shabbos, Hefshata is a malacha. You can't skin it more than what you need to. You're allowed to do all the malachas for the carbon, but the carbon only requires skinning it up until there. After that, you now do Desibri Bishmal B'Nei Shabbichim and Break. For Chachamim, they disagree. They say, no, Mafshit Nes Kulai, you could skin the whole animal. So the Gemara asks, we understand that the reason why you could skin it only up until the chest is because that's doing it for the purposes of the carbon for Hashem. But the Rabban, why do we let you skin it all the way? What's the point? Some around he says because the Amakram. Pasuk says in Mishlei, Kol Pa'al Hashem, whatever Hashem did was Lamaneu for his sake, for his honor. So says the Gemara, because how does that answer the question? What honor is it to skin the animal all the way? So we have two interpretations. Rabbi Yisrael says Shaloy Yasriach, because we don't want it to putrefy. The skin, the hide, heats up and putrefies the meat inside. Now that's not honorable. That the portion you're getting from Hashem's table is going to be disgusting. So it's considered dignity for Hashem that your meat should not spoil, and therefore you're allowed to skin the whole animal so that when it comes Seder night, it's not spoiled meat. Rav Ami says a different interpretation. He says, Shalai Yikachi Shemayim U'Talon Kenavela. Not do with your meat. Is that we don't want the sanctified karbanos to be laying there like a dead carcass, half skinned, half not skinned, and therefore that's why you're allowed to skin the whole animal. It says, what's the difference between if it's that Kach Shemam should not be like an avela or that it shouldn't spoil? Says more two differences. The difference is the manach absurd dahaba. If it's laying on a golden table, it's not disgraced, but we still have to be concerned that maybe it's going to putrefy. So Rava wasn't concerned it's going to putrefy until the evening, and Rabbi Yosef was. So that's going to be the difference between their interpretations. Or Inam, another difference is Yom Astana. If it's a day where there's a northern wind, which is like a calm day, it's not too hot, not too cold, so it's not going to putrefy, as the Gemara says in Yavamas and Parakar Daf Amid Beis Manal. But it's still laying there like a dead animal carcass. That's going to be the difference between them if you're allowed to skin it or not. But now the Gemara says, okay, so we understand the Chachamim why you're allowed to skin it all the way because of Kol Pal Hashem Lamaneu. It's disgraceful for the Kajim to be laying there like that. So then Rabbi Shmuel ben Bereka, who he doesn't let you skin the whole thing, Hi Paul Hashem Lamaneu, this pasuk that whatever Hashem does is for his honor. My what does he do with this pasuk? Why doesn't he let you skin it all the way then because of that? Says the Gemara, because he says no, the pasuk is going to teach you that you're not allowed that you're allowed to go ahead and skin it up until the chest, so that you don't take out the emurim before you skin it up until the chest. That's what's coming to teach us. It's letting you skin it so that when you're taking out the emurim, which is only required up until the chest, that's already skinned, which the Gemara says my timer. Why is that a reason? What does the emurim have to do with skinning it? What does that help? Why is that called Paul Hashem Lamaneu? And then Rav Huna says Mishum Nimin, because the hairs of the wool, which would get stuck to the emurim, if you wouldn't skin the animal, so you're going to be ripping out the sacrificial parts, and it's going to get hairy because the animal wasn't skinned, and you're going to be taking it out. It's going to be disgusting. That's what Kol Pal Hashem Lamaneu teaches you. It lets you go ahead and skin it up until the chest. But all the way, that doesn't let you go ahead and do that. Now, this is where it's going to bring in the halacha of our Mishnah. Amar Chizdam Marukva. He says that Maya Hadru Lechavarya. What did his colleagues, meaning the disputants, respond? What was their argument towards him to show that no, you could skin the whole animal? So this is where our Mishnah comes in, and it's not going to finish on this stuff. It's going to continue to the next stuff. So he said, this is what they told him: if you could go ahead and save on Shabbos, tik ha-sefer, im ha-sefer, the mantle of the Sefer Torah with the Sefer Torah. Now, we said that even though it has money inside of it, but because of the dignity of the Sefer Torah, which is necessary for what's called Tzarech Gavayit for Hashem's honor, you're allowed to save with it the money, which is for a commoner. So, loy nafshid as a Pesach me'ayrish, shouldn't we skin the Korban Pesach from its hide? Which is also Tzarech Gavayit, which is the skinning. Once you're skinning, shouldn't we let you skin the rest for the person himself? Don't you see from our Mishnah that you're allowed to go ahead and do Tzarech Hedi once you're doing Tzarech Gavayit? Which the Gemara says, me dummy, can you compare the two of them? Hasam over there in our Mishnah regarding the container with the money inside of it that you bring a raya from, that is tiltal. That's only regarding muktzah. That's just regarding moving something. Hacha over here, their machlekes regarding the Korban Pesach that you want to compare it to is malacha. It's a complete malacha. Hafshat the skinning is one of the lamates malachas. So even if you're going to say that you could save the tikka sefer with the money inside of it, that's muktzah. That's a rabbinic isser. But what are you going to bring a raya to say that, oh, you see in that Mishnah, you're allowed to do tzarchei hedi once you're doing tzarchei gevaya. Here also you should be able to do tzarchei hedi to skin all the way once you're doing tzarchei gevaya. It's not true, because here it's a malacha deraisa. That's just that of muktzah. So Rebbe Amar Vashi says, the raya they were bringing from our Mishnah was that actually because betarti pligi, they're actually disagreeing with two different things by the Korban Pesach. Pligi betiltel, they were having a dispute regarding moving it, which Rabbi Shmuel says you're not allowed to move the Korban Pesach after you took out the emurim, even what's called from the sun to the shade, which is one of those categories of muktzah that you're not allowed to move something, it's just to protect the thing, and the reason is because of the hide. Either it's because the hide wasn't yet skinned, or as Taisa actually explains, we're actually talking about that it already was skinned, and the Rabbanan let you move it because you still need the meat that it shouldn't get dirty. And Shmuel says it's forbidden. But Taisa says if it wasn't skinned all the way, only up until the breast, everyone would agree that you're allowed to move it, as obvious in the Gemara later on, although Rabbi Shmuel doesn't let you skin it more, but here we're talking about either that you did skin it all the way, or we're talking about Tamid Masofim, that you're allowed to skin it. But be that as it may, they're having actually two machlekes, one regarding muktzah, of moving it, and also the machlekes is regarding how much you're allowed to skin it. And that's what this is what they're coming to tell them from the halacha of our Mishnah regarding its significance regarding moving it. If you say in our Mishnah you're allowed to move the Torah scroll with the container and the money, everything inside of it, which is not a tzarchi Gavaya, it's tzarchei, it's the person's money. So don't you think we should be able to move the skin because of the meat, which also covered Shemayim, because the meat is like the sefer, and you're allowed to move it from the sun to the shade because of the meat. So you should be able to move the skin that's attached to it too. So forget about the skinning. Yeah, that's not what they would bring your eye. But the moving, you should be able to move it because of the meat. And that, as the Gemara continues and rejects this interpretation, and then we'll continue on the next daf. Well, they were trying to bring a rai. Meat dummy, says the Gemara, is that comparable? Hasam over there in the Mishnah regarding the container of the Sefer Torah. Nasa basis l'davar muter. The container, the mantle, the cup, the cloak of the Sefer Torah is a base for something that's permitted, where you're allowed to move it even without a fire. The Sefer Torah is something that you can move on Shabbos. So therefore it's not going to be considered a problem about muktzah. Hach over here, this skin, nasa basis l'davar aser, it's considered a base for something that's forbidden, which is totally forbidden to move. And as Rashi explains, because the meat is forbidden to be moved, because it's not fit to be eaten until the evening. Because Korban Pesach is only eaten at nighttime as it's roasted. And Rabbi Shmuel also doesn't hold that there's an element of kavod shemayim regarding that it's eaten by a person. Or Tais actually disagrees with Rashi, and he says that, actually the meat is not muktzah, he says, but it's still considered basar dava aser because before it was slaughtered, the skin was a basar dava aser, and if it's considered muktzah when Shabbos started, it's considered muktzah the whole Shabbos. But be that as it may, since even if the skin was considered non-muktzah, it was a kli, it would be forbidden because the basar la'asr for sure here where the meat itself is not edible, so therefore for sure it's going to be muktzah, and therefore again it's no raya halacha b'mishnah. There the container of the Sefer Torah, the reason why you can save it with that is because it's a basar dava mutter. Here it's a basar dava aser. The skin itself is muktzah, and it's also basar to the meat that's muktzah, so that's why you can't move it. And if it's not a raya from the mishnah, that's what Gemara is going to continue on the next daf regarding what's considered muktzah or not. Or what they were trying to bring a riot from our Mishnah. Some of this we discussed in today's daf and Shabbos daf Kuf Zayin. We'll finally use this feature that we have this over here. Is we spoke about the saving of the Sefer Torah. So we spoke about if it got worn out and there's enough to save 85 letters. So we said in the previous daf that's like the Parsha of Ibn Sayar, which has 85 letters. So that's what you go ahead and save on Shabbos. So then the Gemara got in discussion once we introduced by Ibn Sayar. For Kadosh Baruch Hu, they made Samanias. There was these inverted nuns before and after the Parsha of Ibn Sayar. And why is that? Either to tell you that this is not where it belongs, or because it's a Sefer Chashav B'nei Atzmo, it's considered, like the pasuk says, Chatzva Mudar Shiva, the 7 pillars is actually 7 Sefer Torah. So then the Gemara explains, what does it mean this is not the place? Why is it over here? It's to separate between the Paranis Rishayim, that of the Asafsub, the rabble rousers that they wanted meat, and the Paranis Ashniya, which is the Misainim, which they were complaining, they said, we're tired from traveling 3 days. And actually, according to that opinion, it's ultimately going to be uprooted from over here. It's going to be written in this place, which is prolonged to the Parsha of the Goel in the beginning of Sefer Bamidbar. Then we went back to discussing what we discussed from the previous daf and opening Mishnah regarding saving a Torah scroll from the fire. So the question was, do we save the margins or not? So the Gemara said you can't bring a raya that you don't save it from a Sefer Torah Shabbat that got worn out, and that we underlined that because that's important. If it's less than 85 letters, what do you mean? Who cares if it's less than 85 letters? But this margin said no, Bala Shani, because if it's Bala, if it's worn out, that means that the scroll itself is worn out. So the margin itself is not significant. Whereas you can't bring a raya that you don't save a Sefer Torah that got erased if it's less than 85 letters. What do you mean? Who cares if it's erased? There's still the margin. So it says no, because the place of the writing they got erased, that we're not talking about, because that sanctity was because of the writing. Once the writing is gone, the paper itself that is written on is also not sanctified. Our question was only regarding if you have the margins themselves, what the halacha is going to be. In that case of the Brisa was talking about when there's no more margin, they cut off the margin, you only have the place where the writing used to be. We also couldn't bring a raya from the margin that have halacha of Tumas Yadayim, so you see the margin do have halacha Sefer Torah because that's considered agav Sefer Torah. When it's secondary to Sefer Torah, then it's going to have the sanctity, but if it's just by itself, without the letters of the Sefer Torah, it might not happen. The Gemara does not resolve that question regarding the Gilgain. Then we had a machlekes regarding the Sifrei Minim, either that you don't save it from the fire, or you're actually going to burn it in the fire, or no, first you're going to go ahead and cut out the names of Hashem and bury it, and then the rest you're going to burn. We had a question regarding Be'avidin, which where they would have the disputations with the heretics and the Jews, and for sure it's a problem for the Savam of Beinitzrafi, which is that of idolatry. And we had that story with that philosopher who really received Sheikhad, he just made believe he doesn't, and they made a mockery out of him, Ima Shalom and a brother of Gamliel. Then we went back to the halacha of the Mishnah and said, why don't you read Ksuvim on Shabbos? It said because Bittul Beis HaMedrash. So it actually said it's a machlekes in that halacha, 2 different versions. This they did not read Ksuvim on Shabbos. Either that's only Bizman Beis HaMedrash, at the time of the Rab's drasha, or Shmuel said, no, even Shlei Bizman Beis HaMedrash. You now read Ksuvim the whole Shabbos. Ay Narda, which was the place of Shmuel, and they did read Ksuvim by Mincha. So then the Gemara has two answers for that. Either you have to say you're right, the Machlekes Rabbi Shmuel is differently. Rav was talking about only in the Mokum Beis HaMedrash. Let's say the Rav gives his drush at 12 o'clock. At 12 o'clock, then in the place of the Beis HaMedrash, then you're not allowed to. But if you're home, then you're allowed to read Ksubim, you're allowed to read Tillim and Shir Hashim and all those different things. Shmuel says, no, even if it's not B'Mokum Beis HaMedrash, then you're not allowed to go ahead and read it. But it's only... But if it's not in the time of the Beis HaMedrash, then you're allowed to read it. He was only saying Shalei B'Mokum. So he held that at 12 o'clock, let's say, you can't be reading it anywhere. But later on the afternoon, the Rebbe is not giving a drasha, then you could go ahead and read from Ksuvim. Or a second interpretation was that actually Shmuel, who said that, and you could say as we originally said, that Shmuel says that yes, Shalei B'Zman Beis HaMedrash, you're not allowed to read Ksuvim. Ayin Arda, they go ahead and they do read by Mincha. That's because his teaching was only going like Reb Nechemia, which he says the reason that you're not reading Ksuvim is because of Kabachem V'Shtarei Jaitis, that we don't want you reading the paper or some other things, or some other reports, and therefore they tell you that you're not allowed to read the Ksuvim. That would be Ol Shabbos, so that you don't read other things like business dealings, Machlekes Rashi, and tell you exactly what Shtarei Jaitis actually is. Then went to the next mission that we said that regarding saving the Kisvei Kodesh and Shabbos, even the container of the Sefer, you could save with the Sefer Torah, even if there's money inside of it. Once you're saving the Sefer Torah, you could save whatever, or the Tefillin box, you can save whatever's inside. Machlekes the mission is that even for Mavi Mefulish, which is open on two sides, or only Mavi She'ein Mefulish, which is open only on one side. And then we introduced, which we're going to continue next half, Machlekes Tanoim in the Brisa, when Erev Pesach is on Shabbos, so you could skin the Korban Pesach. One opinion says only up until the breast. One says the whole Korban Pesach you could skin. Now, why could you do the whole thing? Because Kol Pal Hashem Lamaneu. What does that mean? Either that it shouldn't putrefy, if you're going to not skin it all the way, it's going to get spoiled, or that we don't have Kodesh Mayim that's Matonik and Avela. And the difference between them is either it's on a golden table, which it's still going to spoil, but it's not mutal bebezayin, or it's yom da'astina, which is a calm day, which is not going to spoil, but it's still mutal bebezayin. We said this man Amar, who says only you could skin it up until the breast, is, so what does he do with Kol Pal Hashem L'Maneu? Is that, that you're not going to take out the Emurim before the Afshat Sa'ar, because the here is going to ruin the Emurim. That's what Kol Pal Hashem L'Maneu comes to teach us. And this way, introduce the halacha of our Mishnah. Chum respond to Rabbi Shmuel. In the first version, they say, if you could save the container of the Sefer with the Sefer, for sure you should be able to go ahead, which is called Maisa Hedid, because you're doing Maisa Gavaya. Here also, you should be able to skin the whole animal once you're skinning part of it. And that Gemara says, how could you compare that? There it's regarding Muktzah, just moving. It's regarding Havshata, which is a Malacha. Who said you could do Maisa Hedid up to Maisa Gavaya? Then the Gemara, in our last version, for this stuff, said, they're actually disagreeing regarding two things. One Machlekes regarding could you skin the whole thing. Additionally, that Machlekes was regarding moving it. Could you move it? And that the Gemara still says, even regarding moving it, it's still not comparable. Because over there, by the Sefer Torah, it's a basal dava mutter, it's a base for something that's permitted. So of course you can move the container with it, and then you could save it with it. Here it's a basal dava aser, because the meat is aser, therefore maybe you're not allowed to move it, and therefore wouldn't be arrived from the mission. Therefore the Gemara is going to continue the search on the next half. What are they trying to bring arrived from a mission regarding Machlekes, regarding Pesach, the Paul's on Shabbos? Thank you to Anytime for hosting us.